Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pod Mavericks After Dark. I'm Kirk Henderson, joined as always by Josh Bowe. Josh, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Looking forward to this one. I'm curious of your temperament, of your thoughts, because this was a weird game.
So let's just say that a lot is made up for the fact that the game started at 6:30, not 7:30. That was a surprise to a lot of us. The Mavericks opted to host the concert with Fort Worth. What kind of musician is he? I'm not good with music.
Blues, country rock.
He's from Fort Worth and was apparently an influencer and part of with their new City Edition uniform. So they're holding a concert with him after the game. Very clearly, when they planned this out a long time ago, they thought, a Memphis game, that'll be competitive and fun, and the Mavericks will stand a pretty good chance of winning. And as recently as before the game, you might have actually thought that because despite the fact that Luka Doncic, Dante Exum, and Tim Hardaway Jr. were unable to make the game, the Dallas Mavericks still should have been able to beat the Memphis Grizzlies, who have 7 people out due to various injuries and or suspensions and or anything, because they're just kind of cursed by the injury bug. They'd won 4 games this season.
Yeah, 4-13.
And then the Dallas Mavericks came out and rolled over and said, please take the game. And so it's in like just some inside baseball at Mavs Moneyball. When we do, we have a pretty dense crew of people who write on games. But the guy who had agreed to do tonight's game basically texted me and said he was feeling pretty tired and asked if I would do it. And I said, sure. So I sort of, I was watching the game, but I take notes and things like that whenever I write. And tonight I hadn't did that till midway through the first quarter. And this game it was really pathetic. And I don't know how to really talk about it in a fair way because when you're missing Luka, yes, that's obviously going to be a problem. But then when you have a guy like Kyrie Irving, that's sort of supposed to be his deal.
Yeah.
And, we'll just get this one out of the way early. Kyrie Irving shot 3 of 15 from the floor and was awful. And the Memphis Grizzlies coach basically lapped Jason Kidd on repeat. And the Mavericks just were never able to do anything to get easy shots in this entire game. And I'm not sure how the fuck that's possible. I checked this, Josh. Kidd called 3 timeouts the entire game.
Wait, what?
He called 3 timeouts. I went through the game log. I could now, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'll rewrite it and I'll look back. But I went through the game log and Control F for timeout for the whole game. They called 1 at the end of the first quarter, about 2:45. 1 at the end of the second quarter at around the 3:16 mark, which I'm pretty sure is that use it or lose it mark. Because you get 7 total timeouts. You can only carry 4 into the fourth quarter. And then he didn't call 1 at all in the third quarter, which is when the game went from being and they played a pretty good third quarter, the Mavericks did. But then in the fourth quarter, there was 1 timeout when the Mavericks cut the lead to 6, and then the Grizzlies scored to make it an 8-point lead. Because it was 10:08, and then he didn't call anything for the rest of the game. And
that's pretty crazy considering they were basically trailing double digits almost
the whole time. So it's like, what are it was funny, and I swear I'm not doing this in response to the really amazing YouTube comment we got. Thank you for whoever wrote this, who suggested Josh Bowe and I want to be team employees. Very clearly a newer listener to the show that hasn't listened to us kick the shit out of their decision making for the past 6 years. Anyway, but that was like, I'm just like, I'm watching this, and you see Kid in the post game, he said, I take some responsibility for like Kyrie not being able to get open, and it's like,
wow,
you could do this during the game. I swear, there's the ability. You can go timeout, you can draw some things on the board, and you can get somebody to do something interesting, because I swear to God, these basketball players are talented and can do something other than one-on-ones. I promise.
Yeah, that was weird, because it's like when you're shorthanded, you would think this would be the time to be like, I need to tinker a little bit more. I need to mix it up. I mean, he mixed it up with rotations, but in terms of like the product on the floor, it looked like just kind of business as usual, which is difficult because Kyrie was really the only functional player that could do stuff with the ball in his hands, and he had a crappy game. And from there, it was just like nothing. Like, I don't know what the plan was for this game. Like, obviously, you know what the plan is with Luka, and they're all fully healthy. Like, this was like a game where you needed a better plan than just, let's just keep doing what we're doing and hope Kyrie saves us.
Well, there's so much of what their current plan is, it like revolves around the gravity from Luka. And I don't want to kick Kyrie too much, because I think they had a really good defensive game plan on him. But if Kyrie's the guy who's responsible for the gravity, and they blanket him on the way to the rim where all he can do is get off tough shots, then yeah, you have to do something differently. You just have to. Because I have a feeling what we're going to do here is what we tend to do during losses, and kind of go through player by player and talk about their performance. And it was just such an odd game from everybody. I don't know. I don't want to like overreact. And, because at one point I said, like, when Jaden Hardy, I don't think he only had 2 turnovers, but both of them were of the live ball, like horrendous variety. And I tweeted something to the effect of, can we please send him back to the G League? To which I got some pushback from different people. And then, it was a joke, in-game observation where I'm pissed off. But it's like, outside of Kyrie, there really wasn't, with Exum not there was nobody else who could really get to the cup. Josh Green did some interesting stuff in the first half, because Josh Green is very fast. But Josh Green has no change of speeds. He has like, I'm going at the rim like this, and it either works out really well, or it like he falls over.
0 points in the second half.
0 points.
Missed all 3 of his shots.
How many points did he end up with? How many points?
10.
Shout out to our guy up in Portland. I think his name's Brian, who tweeted before the game. God, I need to go find this. It was just, it tickled me to pieces. He said, he says his handle is at PDX Mavs. He said, he's retweeting somebody noting that Kid says Hardaway is out tonight with back spasms. Dallas is shorthanded. And Brian retweeted and said, Josh Green steps up big tonight and takes on a larger scoring role, and then puts in parentheses 11 points. So talk about absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. The Josh Green experience for me is so painful, because
there's a weird reaction from some people that are like, why aren't the players that come off the bench and don't play a lot, why didn't they save the Mavericks in this game when they played even more and have more offensive responsibility? And it's like, that's not how it works.
Well, it was their chance. I think that's like my answer was like, it was Hardy's chance to do something. It was Josh Green's chance.
Yeah, maybe those 2 guys I get, but like thinking Grant Williams and Omax Prosper and Rashawn Holmes and Markieff Morris are going to save you
against the team that bad. I get the cope. I really do, because just watching that was so painful. And Santi Aldama, who is a player I suppose many Mavs fans were not that familiar with. I mean, he just torched Josh Green and other Mavs players all night long. And when you watch the different guys on that Memphis team that stepped up tonight, Jalen Noel had scored 4 points this season.
That's pretty good.
And he had 19 tonight. 19.
He did that to the Mavericks last year, didn't he? When he was in Minnesota, when he was with Minnesota.
He's kind of one.
He's a Mavs killer.
Yeah, he's like 6'4" and just annoying. And like someone like NBA 2K create a player, Vince Williams Jr.
Can we have him? He looked awesome.
He looked awesome, had 15 points and 9 rebounds. And like when you see like all these different guys from Memphis that chipped in little ways, because their star players, like Jaren Jackson Jr. was garbage. He had 4 points and 4 rebounds. Like Desmond Bane was obviously a superstar. Yeah. Bane loves kicking the shit out of the Mavericks.
It's so fun.
He just loves it. Good for him, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah. He should feel that way, right?
Yeah. And you just go down this line and it's like, what is happening?
Yeah. I think overall though, like, I mean, once Luke, I mean, I did still think that the Mavericks would win. I think I thought they would even still win comfortably because I just thought Kyrie Irving would have like a Kyrie Irving game and not a cold doo-doo on a dirty plate game. But even then, like with no Luka, like pretty much when Luka's not playing, I just don't really feel any emotional attachment to the game. Like, you know, it's just in my head. It's like if they win, it's nice. If not, whatever. We kind of know what this roster is without Luka, which is kind of been like that forever, even with Kyrie here. And I think the most disappointing thing about this game isn't necessarily that like Josh Green didn't light it up. Like, I guess that kind of stinks, but like whatever. Like he's been kind of MIA all season. Like Jaden Hardy, your second round pick, not lighting it up. Like, you know, it's kind of like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But Irving, I mean, he had 1 point in the first half. He made 0 shots in the first half. Like, it's not that he had a bad game or an inefficient game. Like, there's a difference. If he scored like 21 points, but he missed a lot of shots, but you know, he was legitimately trying to, you know, he was putting something out there to give them a chance to win. And that he just had a cold night from the floor. That'd be one thing. But he was not only bad, but like invisible and passive, which is just absurd. How did he only have 15 shot attempts? Like, that's crazy to me in a night like this. Like, this is a game where he has to come in and be like, I'm the best player on the floor, which he was. I mean, which he was entering this game. Like, he's the best player on the floor between the two rosters. He should have exerted his will. Now, I'm getting some people blowing back. They're like, well, with the coaching, you know, there was no way he was going to have a good game. And I'm like, man, I've watched Kyrie do a lot of things on his own that did not require exquisite coaching.
Most of what he does. Are we crediting Kyrie's stellar play in some of the games before this to coaching? Get the fuck out of here.
Right. I mean, it's kind of a weird defense by Kyrie stands, because you're kind of saying, okay, so he's not good enough to do all this on his own. He needs a bunch of help, which is just a weird defense. But yeah, I think if his demeanor was a little bit different in this game, I think that would have made a difference.
This helps though. I hope I don't mess up your name. Wamik in the chat says Kyrie says he got injured and tweaked his ankle via the post game comments.
Well, then that explains it.
Yeah. So
okay. Well, then
disregard everyone. Disregard.
Then they had no chance. But I mean, did he tweak? When did he tweak? I mean, when did he tweak? I
don't know.
Ankle?
I mean, but he was
pretty bad, like right from the tip. So obviously that doesn't hurt. That doesn't help. And I know he's probably still dealing with the foot stuff because that doesn't really go away. But
one of the things I'd be interested in seeing Kyrie's field goal percentage by quarter, because I feel like he has gotten off to slow starts most games.
I think so.
That's okay.
But otherwise, there's nothing really to say because this is the team. Like,
well, but the thing that became very clear to me is, we know this already, but good God, are they small? Kid was rolling out there with lineups in the second half when Derek Lively wasn't out there, where Grant Williams and Derek Jones Jr. were the biggest players the Mavs had on the floor. He had Olivier Maxence Prosper playing some center.
Yeah, they just don't have anyone.
They don't have anybody.
They went to Markieff Morris. Funny enough, they did not play Dwight Powell. So haters cannot get mad at Dwight Powell for this game, which is pretty funny. So, hey, maybe you could have used Dwight Powell on this game. At least he would have given you some energy, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know, but we'll see.
It's just like teams are built a specific way. And when you pull out particular cogs, you have to adjust in one way or another. But when you remove Luka Doncic, who is 6'7" to 6'8" and 245 to 275 pounds, depending on Whataburger, then you have Dante Exum, who is 6'5", but who has a big ass and plays bigger than he is. And then you have Tim Hardaway, who is 6'5" and athletic. And so you remove 3-6-5 guys, and then you start having to roll out lineups that have Kyrie Irving and Jaden Hardy. And I don't care. I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. Jaden Hardy is not 6'4". He's not. Kyrie Irving is 6'2" and 180 pounds. Like big body Roddy is going to go to work out there. Seth Curry's another guy who got like. And again, I'm just sort of bitching into the void. This is not kids' fault, or it's just the way the team ended up being constructed. But when the Mavs get beat, one of the things that stands out more than anything else is their lack of size.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Memphis had 50 points in the paint, despite the fact that Jaren Jackson didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
What's funny?
I hate watching that guy. I know
you do. He's like your big man, Kyrie.
Well, because he's so talented, and some of the fouls, like he got his third foul on Grant Williams, jumping at a Grant Williams pump fake, who was at that point 0 for the century.
Yeah.
And Grant drove past him. He hooked Grant's arm. He hooked his arm, or Grant hooked his arm. Doesn't really matter. But then he was kind of argue the call, and it's like, stop it. Just it's Luka-like. Like, don't do that.
Yeah. Man, I'm just looking at the box. It's pretty crazy. Memphis only had the rest of their starters besides Bane, did nothing. It's pretty crazy that they lost this game basically because Memphis's three bench players, Noel, Aldama, and Williams, had pretty big games. So I guess that's probably why Mavs fans feel pretty frustrated about this game, because you're probably like, well, why can't our bench guys do that?
You go through sections. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. And then if you go through sections of the game log, and it felt like this in real time, the Mavericks would get within 5 to 9, actually it was 7 to 11 points. And then neither team would score for a stretch. I wrote about this, my fourth quarter summary was the Mavericks pulled, it was 75 to 81. So the Grizzlies were up by 6. And that was at the 11:15 mark. The Mavericks did not score for 3 minutes. No timeouts called. Not by the Mavericks, at least. No drawn up plays for an easy button basket.
Which is pretty stupid, because they've actually been pretty good on out of timeout plays.
That's why it was so shocking to me. That's why I keep circling back to it. I'm like, they've been better about this. And then it just looked like, it was terrible.
Yeah, like I said, there was no game plan tonight. It just really did feel like Kyrie save us. And if he did tweak his ankle foot in the first quarter, I mean, if that happened, and I mean, I'm not saying it didn't happen. So that happens. Obviously the coach, did Kyrie just not tell anyone? Because if that happens that early in the game, you have to be like, okay, Kyrie is not going to be able to be Kyrie because he's tweaked something. Let's do something else. And it felt like the only time that kind of looked like they were doing something else was when they went to Seth Curry in the third quarter and kind of ran some plays for him off some screens and did some off-ball stuff. And they got some good looks. He scored 12 points.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't, it just wasn't enough. They just couldn't keep spamming Seth running off a curl to the wing and hitting a three. It was pretty nice, but they needed to do that for more guys than just Seth. They needed to run Josh Green off some more dribble handoffs. They needed to do some more Jones off-ball cutting, just something else. It just looked like they didn't have a real focused game plan once Kyrie wasn't Kyrie, except for maybe some Seth plays. And then, Seth Curry is not going to be a guy right now that can play 30 minutes and carry your offense for an entire game. So that was, once that kind of stopped, the Grizzlies just went right back up to that double-digit lead.
Well, and there's also, we haven't even talked about him yet, but Mr. Ali in the chat brings up another really good point where he says, I personally thought Derek Lively had a very bad hands today.
Yeah, for sure.
That this was the most 19-year-old I've seen Derek Lively look in some time. My favorite, and this people yelled at me about this based on my comment, but Kyrie threw him a beautiful pass, threaded him the ball where he caught the ball underneath the hoop. Now, as a big man, you are taught from the moment you are positioned as a big man in a lineup, if you catch the ball high and you bring it below your shoulders, you're gonna lose it. That's just and so what did he do? Instead of keeping the ball near his 7-foot tall head and just dunking it, he goes down low with it and attempts to gather and get stripped. And that was just one example of really baffling choices by him all evening. He had the slippery hands was really difficult to watch.
Yeah, he couldn't grab a rebound. It felt like to save his life.
His timing was off, and that was like the first time I've really felt that that's happened in a game.
Yeah, there were so many. I felt like the Mavericks lost like every single 50-50 ball in this game.
They only got beat by 7 boards, but it did not feel like that.
I know. I think it's because Memphis had 13 offensive rebounds, which isn't. I mean, that's not great. But the Mavericks had 13 of their own. But of those 13, it looks like 8 of them were from the bench. So maybe that was just a little bit more aggravating.
Mhm.
Aldama had 5 on his own in 33 minutes, which is a lot for a guy like that to come off the bench. And then Vince Williams had 2 in 26. Like those were pretty aggravating. And that's when you want your bench guys to be scrappy and be able to win those plays. And it felt like they just, like you said, they got it down to like 6, 8, 9. And every time it was like Memphis missed shot, ball bounces around, gets back to Memphis, and they score. I don't know what the second chance points were, but I'm pretty sure Memphis was like 15, 17 points in second chance points, which is in a game like this, like that's killer. That's absolutely killer.
Mm-hmm. The size thing, I just don't know how you fix it. I really, really don't.
No, you don't.
They did address it in the draft. Like Omax is enormous, and he looks enormous when he plays.
Right.
He's just
not ready.
Yeah, and Lively.
He's the 24th pick,
yeah.
Which Jarris Walker is a top 10 pick, is not playing for Indiana right now. Taylor Hendricks was like 7th, and
he was your guy.
He's my guy. So it's not crazy that he's not playing. I understand fans want to see him play, but I'm just saying it's not like there's nothing wrong that he's not playing right now. Like there's nothing to doom about his career. But yeah, it is frustrating. Their offseason acquisitions for size were all, it was Lively and Prosper. Like Williams helps a little, but in terms of their, their veteran acquisitions, it, you can see why that they really wrestled with acquiring a veteran big for games like these.
Yeah. There's not a ton left, I think, to really kind of overhash about this game. But I do want to note, one of the criticisms I get fairly regularly, and this is just how I watch sports, is that I get too mad about an individual game. Here is why I feel that this game matters to the big picture and why it was important to notch this one. They're playing Oklahoma tomorrow night, Oklahoma City.
Yeah, this is bad timing.
They're going to get waxed. Oklahoma City is designed to beat the shit out of a team like the Mavericks. Like,
and they
even
already
if the Mavericks
did last season. They did it last season.
Yes. That said, I'm really looking forward to the game. If Luka happens to play, we'll talk about Luka here in a minute. It'll maybe be fun. But there's instances of games where you look in your calendar and you're like, all right, we just got to keep churning along and winning games. And the simple fact of the matter is, you go back and look at the Dallas Mavericks schedule. Let me pull it up here because this is important. And it turns back to like an element of what Jason Kidd got pissy at Tim McMahon about the other night. So let's go back and look at these last several games. They get waxed by New Orleans in the second night of a 2-game series, 131-110. They bounce back the next night and beat the Wizards, but the Wizards are among the bottom 3 worst teams in the league. They lose to Milwaukee. They lose to Sacramento. Both of those, the Milwaukee game was close, and it was one of those you would want to have back. The Sacramento game was one they were never in. They just were never in it. Second night of a back-to-back, what are you going to do? They escaped Los Angeles. Sorry, my dog is in here barking at me. You hush, big guy. They escaped the Lakers, barely, and then they get waxed by the Clippers. While it's really good they beat Houston, I think that was a really good win the other night. Getting waxed again by Memphis sucks. So if you're looking in their last, so they have what? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have 5 losses since the middle of November. Of those 5 losses, 3 of them are blowouts. 4 of them.
And this was a team.
4 of the 5. Yeah, 4 of the 5 losses are blowouts.
And this was a team that only won 38 games last season, and they did not get blown out almost ever.
Yeah, that was kind of their defining factor. And it's blowouts are bad. I don't know how to phrase it any other way. Like it hurts you in multiple ways and sort of goes to a lot of people think this Mavericks team are fraudulent with their record right now. And like losses like this lean into that. And I hate it.
They haven't won back-to-back games since November 12th, 10th and 12th. So it's been We're getting close to a month since they won back-to-back games, which is not ideal.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the Oklahoma City game's not going to be fun, but they've got a stretch of 3 games after that where they can get a little right. Utah, Portland.
You are
and then
reading
Memphis
my
again.
brain.
Yeah.
Because this happened after. Explain what happened. So there's basically a dead week on the calendar, and I'd kind of misunderstood this. I need to actually add this to the Mavs Moneyball calendar. There was an open week in the calendar where teams were eventually going to get other games to play depending on how the midseason tournament played out. Josh, tell us what games the Mavericks got.
So the Mavericks games, since they did not make it to the knockout round, you have to reschedule. You have to schedule those games because all the in-season tournament games are regular season games.
Yep.
So since they're not playing in the knockout round, they get home against Utah and at Portland as their 2 games added to their schedule that was not previously there.
I mean, that's a gift.
It really is. Those are 2 of the worst teams in the NBA. So yeah.
And then they play Memphis again, who will not be any healthier on December 11th.
Yeah, this might be the same Memphis team that they're playing.
That's exactly right. So it's like if they get the pants beat off of them by Oklahoma, we'll have a 2-day break and then 3 games.
Everyone will lose their minds.
Yeah, which is not going to be. I don't know. I really like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is playing like a top 3 in the league player right now. I have him on fantasy, and it's so much fun owning a guy. It's like owning LaDainian Tomlinson back in the day on your team. It's just like, oh my gosh, this guy's so good.
Yeah. Am I reading the schedule right? They get 3 nights off between OKC and Utah. They play tomorrow night, which is Saturday.
Monday, Tuesday.
Monday.
No, Sunday. You're right. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So it's another huge gap in the schedule.
Dude, how many? I know their schedule hasn't been friendly in terms of like the travel, but the amount of days off they've been getting has been insane.
Well, and then I look at the schedule and it like a little further along, and it scares me to pieces where you and I are just talking to each other every day. We're like,
yeah, because I mean they played the Lakers 2 nights off. They played the Clippers 2 nights off. They played Houston another 2 nights off. And again, 2 nights off in the NBA, like that doesn't happen a lot. And they've got like 3 or 4 of them within a 5-game stretch here. So I guess what that means is it's going to be backloaded with the back-to-backs and the 3 and 4 nights and the 5 and 7
just relentless
nights.
When you scroll through it. I mean, it really is.
They're going to pay for
March,
which sucks because they're basically going 500 through what is probably the best rest part of their schedule, like in terms of having practices and days off. Like that's why these losses probably hurt a little bit more, because you need to be winning games when you have 2 nights off, 3 nights off, or whatever. And they lost on 2 nights rest to the Clippers, and now they've lost on 2 nights rest to the Grizzlies. That kind of twists the dagger. What's it going to be like when the schedule turns around and they don't have all these days off like they did earlier? That's not fun.
Yeah, so it's like they were at a travel deficit because they were on the road a lot, but they had pretty good breaks. So it's not concerning. It's like, I've been sitting here saying for quite a time that, like, for me, the successful Mavericks season is 44-38. So we're still trending that way. They're 4 games above 500 right now. There's still the opportunity for them to do some interesting stuff. It's just like this is one of those where you wonder, are you going to look back and wonder about this one? And I think the answer is probably.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, so I'm not going to host another live show tonight because I was up 3 times with the baby. I'm like, my wife needed the night away. She was just losing her mind. So I kept getting up with little guy, and it was like, I don't know. We're kind of reaching that. He's been a much easier baby, but we're reaching that point of like fatigue. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Even the easiest babies are going to wake up a bunch overnight.
Speaking of that, we didn't even touch on that. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Top of the show.
We didn't
Luka,
say anything about it.
Yeah. So Luka and his longtime girlfriend and recently, as of July, fiance, welcomed their first daughter and first child into the world either yesterday or today. So congratulations to them, though they will never see this. But it's silly. It's sentimental. I have a 1-month-old at this point. You have a young kid. It's seeing a person that you admire and watch and like like this, like these players, seeing these, like one of the things I really love is seeing NBA players be dads. It's just one of my favorite things. Jason Tatum with his kid, the way like all these guys are with their children is really, it's just something I love to see. And
it's one of the few ways that we can
directly
to
relate
these guys.
Yeah. And so, you know, seeing Jokic with his like always waving to his daughter, who's a little girl, like probably like 3 or 4. It's just it's great. Like I'm looking forward to the eventual like Luka as dad content, because the man is already fit. Like he's got a dad bod. He makes dad jokes.
But now he's going to get dad strength.
Dad strength power on top of Luka strength is really like the NBA ought to be concerned.
Remember when Dorian had a kid either last season or the season before, and he looked
that's like tomorrow night's recipe for success. If Luka plays tomorrow night, that's the answer.
If he plays tomorrow night, he's going to score like 55 points or something. Yes. He's going to do something crazy. That's my prediction.
Oh, all right. Well, we're right at 30 minutes. Josh and I'll be back tomorrow night. I'll also unless I'm exhausted, I will host a live show tomorrow night. But you know, I would love to give people an opportunity, a place to bitch, but it's too late. Well, it's 10:15. I'm gonna go try to bank a little sleep, and we'll see where things go. Everybody, appreciate you hanging out with us. We know losses stink. If you could do me a favor and subscribe and leave comment if I didn't make my pitch tonight, so I'll figure that out later. Everybody, be good. Enjoy your Saturday, and we will talk with you tomorrow night. Go Mavs.